Step 5. Cognitive Approaches with Nosco. Forward analysis. After defining all the relevant interrelations, you may now move to the analysis section. We will now analyze and interpret the results. Select the direction of thinking as forward in the pop-up menu. In forward analysis, Nosco examines which impulses will develop from the defined starting points and which ending variables will be reached within what timeframes and intensities. Define the starting date from which Nosco will project into the future. Activate one or more variables in the list of variables on the right-hand side. Specify within what time frame and with which impulse strength the variable should start. Click on the Start button. After calculation, Nosco changes to the protocol page. The protocol page indicates which variables are addressed by which other variables, within what timeframes, which impulse values and qualities will be reached, and how impulses are propagated over time in their correlated and dissociated summation. Beyond the qualitative evaluation, you can find a quantitative analysis for the respective changes of the variables in the bottom left. The analysis displays which quantitative values will be reached over the 5 time frames. Results. In order to enhance the cognitive impact and understand the implied interrelations for the user, Nosco formulates natural speech text in the results section. Please navigate to the results section next. Comments are specified according to the time frame in which the impact derives. Based on the defined settings, Nosco compiles each single text fragment into an understandable summary, making the situation more precise and easier to understand. Backward analysis. Now, go back to the analysis page and select the direction of thinking as backward. In the backward analysis, Nosco examines which starting variables to activate with which impulse strengths, and within what timeframes to reach the defined endpoint or endpoints in the specified quality and/or quantity for the desired timeframes. Backward thinking examines the possibility of more than one solution pathway, illuminates alternatives in order to reach the desired endpoint through short-term and minimal invasive setting changes. Activate one or more variables in the list of variables on the right-hand side of the screen. Specify in what time frame and which impulse strength the indicated variable will be reached. Click on the Start button. After calculation, Nosco changes to the protocol. The protocol displays if there are any possible pathways, either single or combined ones, by which the intended aim can be reached. In case there are one or more possible solutions available, you can find a pop-up menu at the bottom of the protocol. Select one of the specifications. Nosco converts the thinking direction from backwards to forwards and begins a new analysis. Again, the protocol changes and shows which variables are addressed by which other variables in which time frames, which impulse values and qualities can be seen, and how impulses are propagated over the length of the time indicated. If you will look at your intended goal, you will notice that Nosco has developed an optimized solution. Presettings. Now, go back to the analysis page and study the presettings. In the section for time frame, you can change the predefined duration of the time frame for the actual scenario. Changing the value of a single time frame consequently will change the future date specifications. The length of a time frame can be specified according to the user's needs. If you want to examine an overall time period, for example 5 years, divide the time period of 5 years through 5. So one time frame will have approximately 1 year, or 365 days. In the section for forward thinking, you can also change individual settings. Decrement specifies how much of the original strength an impulse loses on its way between two variables. Threshold indicates the impulse minimum which must be reached to propagate the impulse. This happens according to an all or none principle. Impulse maximum describes the potential maximum impulse. Spreading specifies how many ending variables can be addressed as a maximum. In case there are more addressable variables, Nosco automatically selects the ones with the absolute highest impulse strengths. In case there are several variables with the same impulse strength, Nosco selects the variables randomly, providing a non-deterministic approach in the analysis process. Facilitation describes how often an impulse is allowed to cycle within one time frame to repeatedly address the same variable. As well, in the section Backward Thinking, you can change individual settings. Results indicates how many different solutions should be developed. Minimum clearance specifies the minimum number of timeframes between a starting point and the defined ending point. Maximum of combinations indicates how many different approaches should be combined if a single approach is unable to reach the desired goal. Timeout identifies the time in which an analysis will be abandoned. Sideward analysis. Sideward, creative, or lateral thinking represents a scientific approach to analysis. It examines if by changing certain impulse specifications or by generating new interrelations, what new results or cognitive shortcuts can be realized to accomplish new and potentially creative solutions. This method is the basis for the creative techniques and generative capacities of Nosco. Change values. Changing variable values not only alters the mathematical values of different ending variables, but modifies the entire matrix of cognitive representation. In contrast to rule-based applications, variable changes exemplify the neurophysiological, dynamic, and time-critical settings. This phenomenon corresponds to the emerging principle of neuroplasticity in the brain.